My dream is to live in the countryside, and preferably in an old log house. So when I found a beautiful property with a 100-year-old house on it, I was hoping to renovate the house. However, when I opened up the walls and the ceiling, I found fungi and a lot of rot. I consulted with a log house expert who does not think that the house is worth saving. In this video, I will walk you through the state of different parts of the house, and I will discuss my options going forward. But first, let's talk about what I want in a house. I want a log house, and I prefer an old one to a new, because I think old ones have more charm. I also prefer a smaller house. I think they're more cozy and the cost for maintenance is much lower, and I don't really need a big house. In my mind, a small house would be 40 to 60 square meters. I do have electricity on the property, but I do additionally need local plumbing and water. For heating, I like the traditional ovens and stoves with wooden heating, the kind I already have in this house. I don't think I will need additional electrical heating, maybe just the floor heating in the bathroom. But definitely I need a good insulation on the house because we have quite cold winters. And I think that's about it. Now let me show you what the state of the house looks like. The foundation has some cracks. They should be manageable and fixable. I just need to dig around a bit once the snow melts and the ground melts and to see how deep the foundation is and is it really good and solid. About the walls. All 4 walls are log walls, and from the inside they looked in rather good condition. I need to remove the clay to have a proper look, but from the outside it's a different story. There are lots of hollow logs and a lot of damaged and soft logs. One wall needs to be completely replaced. I may get away with partial fixes on the other walls, but in any case, the bottom logs of all the walls need to be replaced as well. Inside the house there is a small cellar that used to be under the pantry, and this has done quite a damage to the kitchen floor. Regardless of the damage in the kitchen, I believe all the floors need to be replaced, as the dirt under the floorboards needs to be dug out and thrown out, because I believe this contributes to the stink in the house due to the rodents having resided there for so long. The ceilings, however, seem to be in rather good shape. Both the beams and the boards look well preserved, with the exception of the part with the fungi. There is also some wet rot damage on the bedroom wall. The part of the chimney that is indoors might last still for a while, but the part that is in the attic and outside the house definitely needs to be rebuilt. The oven is nice and big, but it has been overheated at some point, so you can see it has a bend on the outside. It has been fixed on the inside though, so it's still usable for now. The stove is quite new, and this is a good part of the house. Some windows are newer, the other ones are original, I think. However, if I'm going to live in this house, I would want bigger windows because these small windows don't let a lot of light inside. I think it would be cool to restore the old interior doors and reuse them, but I will need to get a more airtight exterior door. The roof situation is typical to old Estonian houses. The old wood shingle roof has been covered with Soviet time roofing sheets, which, contain asbestos. The construction of the roof still holds, but the roof is leaking and has been leaking in several places. It could perhaps last a couple of years with temporary patching up, but I think it makes sense to rebuild and replace the whole roof eventually. I am thinking about insulating the roof in a way that I could build a storage space or some sleeping area in the attic as well. Of course, the walls of the attic are not insulated at all and they are not in good shape, so these will have to be rebuilt as well. Then there's the porch, and I think I will remove the porch entirely. I do not like the proportions of the porch to the house, and I don't like how it makes the house look. The entrance needs to be rebuilt. The foundation here has not been properly made, so you see it has sunk and the door is even crooked. But I do think it's a useful thing to have, and I imagine a terrace next to it. So to sum up, I think there is not a lot to be kept in this house, but at the same time I have grown fond of it and I would like to see if it can be fixed up. Taking everything into consideration, I thought about what my options were, and I put down some pros and cons for each option, at least the biggest ones, as I could see them. The first option would be to go for a full renovation of this entire house and to make it a residential house for myself. In case of each of the scenarios, the house would need full electrical works, plumbing and water system in place. So the cost of these things is not an argument. However, the location in regards to a well and the possibility to add a plumbing system in that area is a consideration for choosing the location and the scenario. As a lot of the logs need to be replaced and one wall needs to be fully rebuilt, this is quite an expensive option, and it might be even more expensive than building an entirely new house. That's because of the replacement job is quite complicated and more time consuming than building a new house or actually new walls from the scratch. To lower costs in case of this scenario, I could rebuild the wall that needs to be replaced entirely, not as a log wall, but as a wooden framed wall. Of course, in the case of renovation, I would get a partly new logs, new walls, and then part of those other walls would not be as new and would not last as long. And there comes a element of uncertainty with this work as well, because I might find some more surprises and even rethink the whole scenario. Then I would maybe end up with a house that is not as well insulated. It will not last as long as a new one. These are the biggest concerns I have with the scenario of renovating this house fully. About the upsides of this scenario, obviously I would have the joy and fulfillment of having fixed, renovated the old house, and I would have the old logs that I always wanted to have. And I think this scenario, even though it may be more expensive in the end, it allows me to spend my money not at once, but I can go with the work step by step as I manage. And hopefully there will be also less paperwork involved, as I need to present an updated house project, but I don't need to apply for a permit to build a new one or a new one into a new location. But there is still a question of whether this location on the property is the best one for a house. Maybe I would build a house in an entirely different location if it weren't here where it is right now. The second option would be to demolish this house and start with a totally blank canvas on this property, so I can choose a location to build my house, provided that I will get a permit for another location. In this case, I would have to pay for any demolition works that I'm unable to do myself, and I have to pay for recycling of the materials that need to be recycled in a proper facility. And of course, I would have to pay for building the new house plus all the paperwork required for that. The pros of this scenario are, of course, that I get to choose the best location for myself on this property, and I would have a completely new house which is hopefully in a good quality, well insulated and all that. But the downside would be that meanwhile I don't have a house, I don't have a roof over my head in case something happens and I really need urgently a place to stay. And this brings me to the third option, which is still building a new house, but with some tweaks. First, not demolishing the old one, which would mean that I have some limitations in where to build a new house, because I have the old one still holding up some of the area. And I would also need to do something with the old house so it wouldn't get completely destroyed while I am building a new one next to it. The fourth option that I see would be to partially reuse some parts of this old house. For example, I could use the foundation and just to demolish the rest of the house and build a new house on this foundation. It would save me some costs, provided that the foundation is in good enough condition. And it would also need less paperwork for building a new house if I'm using the same building footprint that I had before. I could also save and reuse some of the logs, and maybe not for exterior walls, but some interior wall would be nice to build with an older looking log, so I can still have my old log house feeling at least partially in a new house. And the fifth option that I'm considering is to do some minimum fixes required so that the house would still not collapse, and I could use it for something other than a residential building. For example, I could have chickens or ducks inside this house, but then obviously I would have to pay the costs for fixing this house a little bit and then still build a new residential building for myself. So these were the options that I could come up with. There is always, of course, the option to do nothing, but this is not why I bought the property. And now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to evaluate all these scenarios. I'm going to get quotes from builders for renovating or fixing up different parts of the house, and also for the demolition. So I don't know which way I'm going to go. Please let me know in the comments what do you feel like is the best case or best choice here. And I hope to see you next time.